Right, Gavin Mulreany, Finn Harps goalkeeper. I suppose for you it's been a very interesting season, first season in the league. Having started out at Donegal Town previously, also played GAA. So how have you found that step up?
Listen, it's a very professional step up. There's a lot of commitment in it, but it's nothing I wasn't used to from the Gaelic. It takes a lot of time out of your week, I suppose, but it's definitely something that I'm enjoying a lot. And when you're enjoying it, it makes it a lot easier. So.
And how did Ollie Horgan lure you to Finn Harps?
It was kind of we played a game with the Army in towards the end of last year, and I was playing with Donegal Town, and the manager of Donegal Town, Paul, got in contact with me saying that you're going to be getting a phone call from Ollie, and I was delighted with that there. And then they rang me and kind of went from there.
Yeah, you mentioned the defence forces there. Obviously, I think there's been a lot of focus on that game against the UK Army in that perpetual friendship shield. Again, the focus was, and I guess you can maybe talk us through that game, was the 4 penalty saves in the shootout as well. Can you just talk us through that game?
Yeah, it just kind of went from villain to kind of hero that day because we were 1-0 up and don't know what was going through my head, but passed the ball straight to the UK striker and he tapped it into an empty net. So it kind of had a lot to do then to kind of make up for such a silly mistake, but we went 2-1 down then, and you know that fighting spirit that us Irish have, it kind of went. We scored an equaliser in the 96th minute, and then when it kind of went to penalties, then I was just kind of like, this is my chance now, and luckily I was on the right end of it then, so I was happy then to make up for the silly mistake.
And obviously, look, life in the military and like life in sport, I mean, there's always going to be a bit of a crossover. I kind of have that level of bravery and that level of fight, and you're going to need it this season with the last remaining games for Finn Harps in the battle to avoid the drop. And when it comes to the way Ollie Horgan runs things behind the scenes, because he's been there and done that with the club in terms of fighting battles towards the bottom or getting the club promoted, like what's he like in terms of his demeanour around the place?
Well, so Ollie would be probably the most experienced manager. He's the longest serving manager now in the league, and he's been through this here occasion more than once. So he's not panicking. And we see that as players from Ollie, and it definitely rubs off on us. And there's great coaches there as well. So we're not going to panic anyway. We can only do what we can do, but we've started to head a slight bit of form there now at the moment, so hopefully this weekend we can kick on and get another 3 points at home, because our last 2 games we've won, so hopefully now this is kind of Finn Harps' time of the year to start playing, so yeah.
And home form is obviously going to be important. The remaining games, and obviously, look, you're not going to take away games for granted either, but you've UCD, who are obviously the team you're vying against, coming to Ballybuffet close to the end of the season. I imagine it's one of you've really targeted that game in terms of long term. Obviously, still going one game at a time, but you have that in mind.
Listen, obviously it'll be in the back of our mind, but we haven't talked about the UCD game or anything yet. All we're focused on is this Saturday. Obviously, we've probably thought about it on our own, but never from management or anything has it come out that that's the one we're worried about. Just hopefully now. Hopefully it comes to a stage where we won't need to worry about the UCD game or the last game of the season. Hopefully we'll have the business end of things done at that stage, but listen, you can't take anything for granted at this level because you'll be punished. So we have to go out to every game and give it 110%.
Yeah. When you see UCD, say, beating Dundalk, do you pay much attention to that? Like, obviously it has an effect on the table in terms of where you are, but do you really, how do you react to it in the moment?
Well, listen, as he says, you can't take anything for granted here. So anyone can beat anyone in this league if you're not at it. So I suppose we're lucky that we have 4 home games left instead of 3, but when we're getting results, it seems like UCD are getting results. It's nearly like we're pushing each other, so we're no surprise because there's quality in UCD and there's quality with us as well. So there's no surprise that we're beating teams of recent, but it just seems to be now that we're kind of pushing each other forward for these results, and it's going to be the way it's going to be to the end of the season.
Be hectic enough, but anyway, best of luck with the run in and your commute all the way back up to Donegal. All right, thanks very much. All right, Michael Gallagher of UCD. You've had some high points recently and also some low points. We might start on the low one and then kind of work our way up to the high. So the cup defeat to Treaty United, obviously a massive disappointment for you. Obviously your main battle is trying to stay in the league this year, but at the same time a cup run is always something welcome.
Yeah, definitely. At the start of the cup we put a real focus on trying to get a a good cup run, and we had a few good results, like going to difficult places like Galway away and things like that. So yeah, listen, we're very disappointed with the result last week. Just didn't really show up, but shift our focus now back to the league, and as you said, main thing's trying to stay in the division now in the running. So
Yeah, and does it kind of help in that way that you know what your target is this season? So like you have a setback, but your battle is very clearly you have to stay in this league. So you just have to shift. You have no choice but to shift focus straight away.
yeah, listen, I think at the start of the year, we knew we'd be in and around that, and like our mission was just to try and get as many points on the board as quickly as possible, and that hasn't changed. Going into the running now, I think our league form's picked up a little bit, performances definitely. So yeah, going into every game looking for 3 points, and hopefully we can get that in the next couple of weeks.
And you mentioned the form picking up, and I think one of those games, of course, is the win over Dundalk. And I think it's the nature of it as well, because you were trailing 10 minutes to go. I mean, just take me through those last 10 minutes for the team, for the club, and what that meant in terms of the resilience that you had to find to beat a side like Dundalk.
Yeah, I think that kind of shows the fight in the group to stay in the division now. Like coming from behind, trailing just before half time as well. It's a tough time to concede, but fair play to the lads. You rallied again, and you see like it's a credit to the fitness and just the mentality of the players to be able to come back in the last 10 minutes against such a good side, as you said. So yeah, just more delighted with that.
Yeah, and the battle for you obviously is there's always two sides or three sides to a battle, but this year it's Finn Harps, a club that's very dear to your heart as well, as a Donegal man and as one of your former clubs. Does it add a little more of an incentive for you, just given your own connection to the other team that's fighting it out with you?
Yeah, not really. Listen, obviously I still have good time for a lot of the lads down there, the staff down there, and they were really good to me, and I still have a lot of love for the club. But really, I'm just focused on UCD and trying to keep us in the division, really. So I think everyone's just focused on ourselves, and that's all we can do, really.
Yeah, and listening to your man Andy Myler after games or before games and kind of discussing where the club is at, he seems to be very much a realist in terms of what's realistic for UCD. So what's he like behind the scenes in terms of managing the group, and also with the challenge of knowing you're kind of battling towards the bottom end, and there's always going to be, you've certain challenges as a club that maybe other clubs don't face?
Yeah, listen, Andy's been brilliant since he's come in. I think he works really well with the young players, which is obviously huge, and UCD and the turnover of players, managing a group that, like our group at the minute, is fairly small, and being able to manage that, I think himself and Willie have done a really good job, so credit to them.
And one of those players in terms of the turnover that you mentioned, it's Liam Kerrigan, of course, who's gone to Como in Serie B and has been part of the Ireland U21s for quite some time now. Unfortunately, I think as we heard yesterday, he suffered an ACL injury. But before that, had you kept in touch with him while he was in Italy, just see how he's settling in, and how's he been doing off the pitch more so?
Yeah, I would have been really good friends with Liam when we were here, so yeah, definitely keep in touch, text him most days or whatever. But yeah, he's loving it over there, loving life over there. Just getting used to the weather and the training, he said, is fairly intense, but off the field, like living and all the rest of it, I think he's going well. So a bit devastating for him that he got that injury when he was starting to do really well. But listen, I know Liam well, so he'll bounce back from that. He's a great attitude, so no worries about that, really.
And finally, I suppose the nature of it, like playing for UCD, obviously you're always going to get asked about what you're studying and everything else. So here is that question: what are you studying, and how do you kind of balance that side of it with the football?
Yeah, that's obviously a big part of playing for UCD. I just finished my undergrad in economics, so I started a master's now in Smurfit. So just getting into that. It's only week one or whatever, but yeah, loving it so far. So I don't really find that aspect of it tough, balancing it. As long as you've organised your time decently well, you're alright.